memories just wash away like tears in the rain. Everybody has legend and legacy and learning for future generations. So don't lose it. Don't leave it up in the shoebox upstairs gathering dust.
Welcome to the Richer Soul podcast, where we share how to live in harmony across health, wealth, time, relationships, and spirituality. How do you bring them all together to live your ultimate life? The best thing is we've got nothing to sell, just great advice from people who've succeeded and lived that dream. Welcome to Richer Soul, Miles Spencer. It's great to have you join us today.
Hey, Rocky. Great to be here. Thanks.
And I'm excited to learn from you. We always like to start at the beginning. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Well, as I said in the intro, a curious kid from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania that never quit asking who, what, why, where, when. Of course, sometimes I ask that about money. And look, my dad grew up quite poor in central Pennsylvania. He's one of 12 kids. His father was one of 24 kids. So, dinner was a challenge economically, right? So I started with the old paper route and, items like that, and had an allowance, would spend X amount. And sort of remember where it says $1.25. I had my chore list, and you'd walk down to 3rd Street in Beaver, Pennsylvania. And I think licorice was my big spend back in the day. So I don't know that I learned all that much about high finance in Beaver, Pennsylvania, but that combined with the fact that I learned what 27% unemployment was when steel pretty much left Pittsburgh in the early 70s. And my father, who was a life insurance salesman and manager, also had other businesses like advertising and restaurants, etc. No matter what you do, when unemployment's 27% overnight, it's hard to have those businesses as well. It was not a pretty time. I didn't quite understand why. I do now. That's just like economics 101.
It is. Since your dad was an entrepreneur, was there much learning about business and money from him?
I got to say, the things I just cited were really my mom, right? Like kind of running the house. And remember that show's called Wait Till Your Father Gets Home, right? So it's only on for a little while. But it's like, I've heard that before, right? So, the misbehaviors, financial and otherwise, during the week were met with like, wait till your father gets home at the end. And, I think it was casual observation, education about money. We had this restaurant, and on the one hand, Dad had this big vision for what it could be, etc. Tablecloths in Beaver, Pennsylvania, big deal. And I was able to pull it off, and it was super popular. But he really couldn't go anywhere with prices, right? I mean, at the end of the day, it's not New York City, right? So you can only charge what people are willing to pay. So I think I learned about the inelasticity of demand even before I studied it in an economics book. It's like, it's all good, but people, no matter how fancy it is, people won't pay that. So the menu's got to reflect it, right? And I think he did a decent job of making people feel a little special, a little fancy, but not putting prices to the point where nobody would come and nobody would pay. So he was a showman, an entertainer in his own way, even for a life insurance salesman. So was my mom. She was a soap opera actress, so they did pretty well. And as a 1-2 punch, and they would host Friday evenings with a big evening where they'd get the big premium price because there's 3 courses, but it was also singing waiters and waitresses. So get a couple extra bucks per cover for that. I was working the back, dishwashing. Right? I learned what minimum wage was. It wasn't much back then.
It's funny. Our generation learned those lessons doing those things. And kids today don't have those opportunities. Now, they could create a YouTube channel and be a star, or an Etsy shop, or something else. I'm wondering how much of a difference it makes, or is it just the times and kids learn differently how to work with money, how to be entrepreneurial, and learn some of those life lessons.
Well, yes. I mean, look, you're referring to something that looks very easy to do, be an influencer and get an NIL deal, et cetera. But the reality is it's very lonely there at the top of that pinnacle, right? And while it may look easy, it's precious few actually ever get there. Luckily, I have some young ones in my household. And interestingly enough, one of them is a photographer, right? He got started with my business taking photographs at trade shows, but he takes Polaroids, right? And so he just got a job taking Polaroids at a freshman dance for the photo booth. And the thing is, it's one of a kind and it's instantaneous, right? Now, that's an old school business, right? He's got real film costs. He knows what those are, those film costs. And so he knows what, he knows what he needs to get per frame to cover that, but also to make a profit for the night. And it's one of a kind stuff, right? It's just this moment. By the way, do you know what these cost? Do you know what each one of these costs these days? Like hard cost for a Polaroid film.
Are they up over $2 a picture?
Yeah, like $2.50 to $4. Yeah, depending on.
They were never cheap. They
True.
were always a premium price product.
Yeah, true.
I'm almost surprised they don't figure out how to just print on like
Right.
a hard paper stock instead of film.
I don't know. There's something about these. They're, I don't think these are going away now. There's something about them, right? Now, the issue is in 50 years, what do they look like in someone's shoebox when they're discovered? And they're like, who is this? And there's no notes on the back. So that's a separate issue for perhaps later in the show. But yeah, anyways, that's his way of learning a business without, being an influencer with an N.
I have a couple thousand slides. They're a pain in the ass to go through because you got to load them up and then watch them and then sort them.
Have you seen that episode? I mean, we're getting off on tangent here. Sorry about it. But Mad Men, one of the middle ones, they're pitching Kodak. And instead of calling it a ring or a tire, et cetera, he called it the carousel. The carousel of memories, right? We sell hope, we sell dreams, et cetera. Don Draper, Mad Men, pretty good. It's a great episode on why he named it the carousel.
100 slides in one carousel. And if you were really good, you had two of them side by side that learned how to merge. So how did you become this curious kid chasing adventure? Was that like just your natural talent? Was it something that occurred? Like, how did it come to be?
Had to have been natural. I mean, I can remember my, it's probably 4 or 5 years old, just asking so many questions. My grandparents were like, enough, right? So that's when I knew I had this propensity to try to figure things out. It's not always good, by the way. I'm finding sometimes in relationships and the rest, some people just want to be heard. They don't want their problem solved. Right? I'm almost like, tell me more. I want to figure this out. I could fix that. Right? I could fix that. And that's actually no.
I have a question on that. What percentage of people do you think actually want it fixed versus want to just bitch about it?
To the first, I would say, too many. And then the second part of your question, even more.
Okay.
I want to fix it. I want to fix it right. I want to get on with it. It's not always the way. As Mandalorian.
So you grew up curious. You got told enough quite a bit. Thankfully, there were lots of kids in the family, uncles and aunts to get a wide audience at least.
That's right.
You continued to do that though, right? You didn't give up on it.
Absolutely true. And I just thought that was baseline. That was normal or something. So I just kept asking the questions and that led to adventures and ventures, right? It's ideal for entrepreneurship to be curious about how this works. What's it like? Would you do it again? Et cetera, right? So it served me well, but to be honest with you, I probably didn't call myself a curious kid from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania until quite late in life, but I had always been. I just didn't realize that was the theme. the whole time.
And sometimes it's not until much later that you realize a skill that you did early is actually the reason for your success. Like for me, the reason I built wealth is at 21, I just automated my finances and I put money away and I just let it compound. And I never realized that that one choice was guaranteed success, no matter what else I screwed up.
Simple trick.
Simple trick. So, how soon did you get into business?
Well, let's move beyond the paper route and dishwashing and things like that. Now, fast forward, I'm 20 years old. And I came to the unfortunate conclusion, as every young male athlete does, that perhaps he's not going to be signing a professional football contract, right? Some people realize that when they're 5, some 15, and some 25. Like 20, I realized no football, no baseball, not going to pay my way. I did make a couple of bucks playing beach volleyball, which technically made me professional, but it didn't make me a living. And so, okay, what's next? My dad, who I mentioned, sold insurance, and he sold key man life insurance. And so he would put that into a financing where the CEO got life insurance, or he had all these folders at home. What's this, Dad? I was like, oh, this is the dead deal. So I didn't sell any insurance on. Like, well, what happened to the deals? Like, oh, I don't know. Like, do you think there could be something here? So, give it a shot. Summer vacation, go ahead. So I bought a business on my summer vacation, which was one of the dead deals that he did not get to sell key man life insurance on. So that worked out okay. Got to run a business for a couple of years, left school. And then when that business was sold, I joined a Wall Street firm and started doing it for other people, both financing and buying and selling businesses. So I was really, 20, 21 years old when I took that shot. Didn't get my degree, but remained a student the rest of my life. It was probably better for me.
So it sounds like the business did okay then.
It was okay. I wouldn't, was not big home run, but it did okay. And it put me in a spot where I could do even more okay.
Clearly, going to New York, buying, selling businesses, the place to be, I'm assuming.
I got my shot on Wall Street because of that. And that worked well until I realized, like many people do, you don't want to spend your life on Wall Street. So I moved my way up to being a partner and a principal in a venture capital firm during what became the .com bubble. And that was a good time to be hanging around in venture capital and financing. We did well there. And then I showed up during, remember when Steve Jobs said, like, it's a phone, it's a camera, it's a music player? Like, that's something. So we started a few businesses around mobile media. And then I thought it was done after, it was COVID. It's like, all's well. Don't need to push it too hard here. And then AI came along. And so I think that's the third big mega super trend. Besides being a curious kid from Pittsburgh, being curious enough to say, like, hey, what's that wave and where's it going and how long is it going to last? I did that in .com. I did that in mobile. And it looks like perhaps now we're doing that in AI as well.
So let's take a step back to that .com era in working on Wall Street. A lot of people look at that as glamorous. I grew up outside of New York, so I always thought of it as the underbelly in a sense. Like, yes, they have money, but there's no values and there's no ethics. And you were on the inside. What did you see from the inside?
Well, definitely there's Gordon Gekko around for sure.
Yes,
right.
That's what I grew up on.
Bud Fox and the rest. But, money, like religion, has its extremes on both sides, and that's where generally the trouble is. And then in the middle, there are a bunch of pretty good people that are just making a living. They dress well, might live in a nice neighborhood and have a nice house and a nice car. But the reality is, compared to everybody else in their neighborhood, They're just doing okay.
When you say they're just doing okay, you mean from a financial standpoint or from some other standpoint?
I would say both, right? I think now you go to the underbelly, right? In order to do those things, especially before technology rolled around, that required an insane amount of hours, generally in an office, generally after commuting an hour each way, 70, 80, 90 hours a week. Maybe see your kids on Saturday afternoon and or Sunday morning. Sunday evening, you're so tweaked out on what's going to happen on Monday, right? You get the Sunday jitters and you're useless by dinner on Sunday. They say the half-life of the Wall Street gang is very short, right?
Most of them are gone by the late 20s, early.
Burned out, go do something for yourself or go do something different.
There's that. What about the other side from the life standpoint? And you can go beyond Wall Street. When was the wake-up call to realize chasing money, chasing all of that wasn't all it?
I think my father imbued a lot of those values in me from the get-go. And so didn't feel terrible about leaving school, didn't feel terrible about not going to Ivy League or going to get a law degree or et cetera, right? That pipeline into Wall Street. I actually got there a different way. Life balance really was accentuated when I had kids at the age of 50, right? So now it's a little different. And, it helps you prioritize and manage your day a little bit better when you got some other things that are important to you.
But that's still a choice.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you talked about earlier about the people who didn't or barely saw their kids from Saturday afternoon to Sunday morning.
Yeah, that is a choice, right? That is a choice. Chasing the dream, right? There's an old saying on Wall Street where you get a young guy, he's well educated, went to prep school, went to Ivy League school, got his MBA, got recruited, got into one of the blue blood Wall Street firms or the law firms adjacent to them, et cetera. The senior partners would often say, like, the day the kid buys the house and has 1.5 children, they know they've kind of got them locked up for 10 years, maybe more, because you've got this huge overhang of the home in New Canaan plus the summer home in Nantucket, this little island off the coast, and a couple of kids in private schools, and eating in restaurants 5 nights a week, and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, by the way, taxes, right? How are you going to get out from under all that? And the answer is you're going to stick with this firm for the next 15 years. That's your only hope. Gotcha. Bought a house, got married, had a kid. Gotcha.
That's worse than golden handcuffs. That's a golden jail cell. Do most people escape? What happens to them?
I know a lot of alcoholics and a lot of guys that look like they're 78 and they're really 52. And they probably kick their dog in the middle of the night. And I'm not so sure their wives love them all that much. And I'm saying guys, but now it's, everybody. It's not really soulful work. And so you might pursue that elsewhere.
I find a lot of people, when they're in a situation like that, can't even imagine a way out. Like they're so stuck in that, not that they love the vision, not that they even want to be here, but they just can't see an escape.
Well, again, I certainly generalize, right? I mean,
right.
There are plenty that have got it right, and there are plenty that have figured it out and balanced it out, et cetera. But I've seen my share of those that haven't. And say, like, wow, yes, I get it. They feel trapped. And frankly, they are.
But we always have the ability to change anytime we want. Go a different direction.
Right.
Sell the Nantucket house. Give up the other house.
I love the stories of some pro football players. And I think that Seattle Seahawk, what was his name? Beast Mode. He came from UCal. He was the running back. They should have given him the ball in the Super Bowl against the Patriots right at the end, and instead of throwing the slant pattern that got jumped and it was over, right? I'm going to come up with his name in a second. He's a big boy. But I think he banked 95% of his salary for 10, 15 years. Drove like an Acura Legend and et cetera, et cetera. And, good for him. There's plenty of those examples, by the way. Been hanging out with my share of professional athletes lately, and I noticed there's some of the same. Marshawn Lynch, by the way, was the name. There's some of the same attributes as the Wall Street guys, right? Finally got my big, they get trapped.
The difference between them and the Wall Street guys is the Wall Street guy can be there till he has a heart attack in his fees. The football player is on a very short time horizon. Most sports players, they don't have longevity in the business.
5 years would be lucky. And what's interesting about them, I find, I was talking to one guy, his name's Gary, he has a Super Bowl ring and won it with the Green Bay Packers. Grew up in a tough neighborhood in New York and Long Island, and now does a lot of charitable work. He says, it didn't take long before no one was asking for my autograph, right? You just become less relevant / irrelevant figure.
And I don't know the stats, but I would have to believe that if you looked at sports, the amount of people who stay relevant post is a pretty tiny number.
I was thinking of Roger Federer the other day, tennis player, obviously, and I think it was Nike, and remember the RF hat, right? And they kind of came to the end. It's like, hey, you're at the end of your career. I'm not going to renew your deal, etc. And they took tens of millions of dollars off the table. He signed with Uniqlo, which is one of my favorite simple clothing brands, and he's going to be their clothing ambassador for the next 25 years. Well played, Roger Federer. That is rare, very rare. Even Tom Brady, who's love him or hate him, he's not so good at inflating pigskins, but he's good at calling cover two before the ball is snapped. That's defense, by the way. I find him already getting some calls wrong just based on how the game's evolved, right? And so difficult to stay relevant after you're gone. So what's next?
So what does the average person do?
Well, the average person probably never had the highs, right? And one of the keys to happiness, I believe, is low expectations, right? So the average person may not ever have those expectations of signing this contract, getting this deal, and getting it, et cetera, right? Just kind of like steady Eddie, stability, and compounding wins the day.
Kind of like the rabbit and the tortoise, right? Is the hare and the tortoise?
Yeah.
You show up, you enjoy the journey, you have fun. Maybe you have 12 kids, maybe you have 2, and it's all good. We don't glorify that, though, and we don't exemplify it. It's all about, the big thing. And we even started there with kids and, being influencers. And even that life is not, you get sucked into being something you're not, because you got to keep growing, right? You got to do something wilder, crazier, and dumber tomorrow.
Exactly. My fans are waiting for the latest and greatest. I'll lose my numbers.
Yeah.
Well, we're both from Pennsylvania, right? I think there's a unique work ethic and a salt to the earth and a steady Eddie and the just showing up personality to a lot of people in Pittsburgh, a lot in Philly, a lot in Clearfield, where my dad was from, and lots of places in between. It's like Rome wasn't built in a day. Just what can you do today?
No, and that was one of the things, and the reason we stayed is it's a great place to raise a family. Do we have the excitement in New York City? No, but I can be there in no time for lunch and come home the same day. I can do the same in Philly, Baltimore, DC, wherever I want to go. So it's not that hard to experience the fun, but daily life is good. It isn't the hustle and bustle and the rat race. And the cost of living is also extremely reasonable. And people just don't realize, I listen to the news. I'm like, I don't know what you're all talking about where you're living. Life isn't that hard if you decide to make some different choices. No, but that's up to people.
Well said.
So AI is the latest, greatest, right? That's the next wave. It seems like it's going to last for a while. I feel like the AI wave is already, I don't know the right word. It's not breaking, it's not peaking, but I think people are starting to realize that AI, it's kind of like the dot-com bubble. Everyone's going to buy online. Stores or brick and mortar is going away. We still have brick and mortar.
Yeah, of course.
I feel the same about all the people talking about AI today. They think it's going to solve every problem and everything's going away, but I think people are starting to realize what you started with, which is the Polaroid. People are coming back to real moments. I want to see somebody. I want something that I can't fake. I want to know that it's real and something I can keep. Like, that picture is there. The 10 million on my iPhone, I can't even find them. That's the shift I see. I don't know what you're seeing.
Yeah, humans for the win is what we call it. So, look, Elon described it as a supersonic tsunami that's going to change things dramatically. I just saw an advertisement or advertisement, as we would say in Pennsylvania. And it's a law platform that optimizes with AI, right? And it's about time because it's kind of been an inefficient business process. But the spokesperson, the human that was saying like there's humans behind this, was Jude Law. It's like the perfect spokesman for a law AI platform. In any event, I think it's going to allow us, once we get our hands around it, it's going to allow us to do so much more efficiently. And it's a great boon to entrepreneurs. Think about, I got to file this document, that I got to be an accountant today, I got to be a lawyer tomorrow, I got to be a marketing person, etc. And now all that kind of gets flattened out. What is the currency of the future? What's unique in the future? My thesis is the stories are unique. Mankind's stories have been told throughout the years, orally or in caves with charcoal. And remember that movie, Name of the Rose, we did in calligraphy, etc., right? Daguerreotypes in the Civil War and slide trays. We talked about the carousel, right? These were all ways to tell stories and keep legacies and learning and memories together to pass them through the generations, right? They're kind of like, how you go to the kitchen, you can do, I just made some bread, right? You can do a lot of things by hand. You can imagine, the day electricity was invented. All of a sudden, all these appliances, like, holy cow, we could do all these things just by plugging this in, right? Make toast. I don't know if you generally, don't you use a toaster now for toast? That wasn't always the way. Still, like, hold it over a fire with a fork pitched piece of wood, I suppose, or metal, right? That's how we made toast. Now just plug it in, hit the button, boom. There you go. So it's as if all these, think of AI as the appliances, right? We've just invented electricity. And people are like, oh, wow, I could do my wash by hitting that. I could do my dryer by doing this. I could vacuum up and sweep up by just plug this thing in. But the day before electricity, none of them were very valuable, right? But wow, the day electricity came on, boom. And that's what I think AI is like.
It'll be that part of it, something we probably take for granted. We'll see. I know that we're always wrong. I'm not going to make a prediction. Getting back to stories, though, you have a story of your mom and elderberry pie, don't you?
Oh, wow. You got that one, huh?
I do. I'd love to hear it, though.
Sure. Well, the background is this. Elderberry pie is a pretty special thing for someone from Pennsylvania. Now, our elderberry picking was up on Route 80, just about in Clearfield. And elderberries are very unique. They kind of grow in Switzerland and they grow in central Pennsylvania. And I don't know how many other places they actually grow, but there's this beautiful tart purple berry that's green. Nobody wants it. And then it's suddenly ripe and you got about 15 minutes before all the crows descend and eat them all, right? And so in that moment, we used to be driving down 80 and hey, they're like, we'd stop until the police came. Just like they were precious. We'd get like one pie a year. There was even a year in which, sorry to say, the elderberry pie came out for Thanksgiving. My mom, by the way, is a great pie baker, which I'll eventually get to, but I'm a storyteller, so I'm sorry. The pie was passed out and my brother decided he was going to go get some ice cream from the freezer to accompany his elderberry pie. Now, remember, we only get one of these a year and we only get one slice because a bunch of kids, right? He got back with the ice cream tub to an empty dessert plate. And I said, like, better luck next year. That was what elderberry pies are like, right? So my grandmother taught my mother taught my sister taught her children. And we're up in Vermont at a cabin with my niece and my sister. And my sister's going to make me an elderberry pie for Christmas. Like, oh, heaven. She forgets the recipe, more or less. She's not getting that old, but somehow she just didn't have it, right? And because of this platform that is around called Reflekta, which takes not just, things like this, but also love letters and immigration records and family trees and recipes for elderberry pie, puts them in a cloud, and also creates a recognizable image and likeness of a loved one capable, this is important, of a spontaneous dynamic conversation. So my mom, Nancy, walked my sister through how to make the crust with shortening from fluffo, and there's ice cubes involved, and not too hot, not too cold, and don't overwork it, and that's what makes it flaky, and then you cook it a little bit, and then you put the filling in, etc. My mom walked my sister through it. Not a recipe that she read, but literally, what do I do next, Mom? Well, did you do this? Yes, now let's start with that, etc. Spontaneous, dynamic conversation. My mom, just as she had for so many years, walked my sister through making an elderberry pie. The only thing that was unique this time was that my mom had passed away 25 years ago. But through the power of Reflekta, that's all sitting in her knowledge base, and we can tap into it anytime. By the way, my dad passed away 9 years ago. He reads bedtime stories to my daughter, his granddaughter, and they talk about it until she falls asleep. So that's the elderberry pie story from my mom.
So I'm assuming you had voices captured from back then.
So what Reflekta measures is time to joy, right? So if you go in Reflekta.ai and you create an account and you want to create a reflection. Now, this could be for someone that's passed. We're going on, I think this weekend we passed 20,000 stories from families that are on the platform. Half of them are from people that are passed. Half are still around. Military, seniors, people of faith, etc. want to get their story down before it's too late, right? But those that had passed, you need a photo. Everybody's got one of those. You need a life story or an obituary. Most people have one of those. And then there's the voice. My father, who you can talk to today, there's 2 public elders on the platform. All the rest are default private, family to family. But Arthur and Virginia are public. You can talk to them and see what it's like. You can talk to them about what we just talked about, on this podcast, as a matter of fact. You can talk about insurance, you can talk about football, you can talk about Pennsylvania, etc. Certainly about elderberry pies. His voice was printed off of a 10-second voicemail we found in his granddaughter's phone 5 years after he passed away. That is his voice. That's all we need. We prefer 20 seconds. That's all we need. And then the stories fill in. And when you hear those stories and the context and the humor and the character with that voice, now it's an interesting thing about the voice. I was basically the guinea pig, right? Like my dad's voice was, if not first, one of the first. And my first reaction was like, not quite there. Could have been a little. I was just focused on the perfect voice, right? The reality is, it had been 8 years since I had heard that voice. The voice knew all the stories and wouldn't stop talking. I mean, Buddy Hackett jokes coming out his ears, right? Like he's an insurance salesman. What do you expect? And it's the last voice of my father I would hear for the rest of my life. It became his voice. So if you have a voicemail, if you have a video from a speech at a wedding, if you have something like that, there you go. You can print it, right? If you don't, and we do have people on the platform that don't, you simply can use same-sex sibling or descendant of the person, and it gets pretty close. So my great-grandfather's on the platform, Miles Sharpless Spencer, and it's my brother that voices him. But he's got all the stories.
You know why I'm lucky? I got about 500 episodes here of voice and video.
Well, yeah, you and I are all set. I mean, that's gonna go on forever, right? We're good. It's just, we're finding that among those that have passed, it's about 20 years, right? Because now we're into like CDs and VHS and, what other way do we get a voice, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you can grab that, then you got the rest. But you get beyond that, it's kind of hard to get the actual authentic voice.
So what should people do to prepare for this in the sense of how do I make the recipe, right? So to speak, like how do you do those things and what should people think about putting in there and to what level can we truly train it? Like for me, all these podcast episodes on life become things that my kids could always look back on if they choose to. And there's real conversations with all these little tidbits that they can grab. What are you doing with the people who come in? Are they doing that? Are they creating the stories? What are they doing?
Well, two different cases. Obviously, you, with your own podcast that would be transcribed, you already have the voice. And the difference would be that a grandchild or a great-grandchild could actually ask a spontaneous and dynamic question, which you can't do when you're watching you on YouTube or Riverside.
No.
Whatever it is, right? That's the difference. That's the step. That's the moment, right? So once again, time to joy. Most people want to get to a ready score of 80, which is what enables you to chat with the reflection. And the easiest way to get there is to load a biography, life story, if they've passed, an obituary, a photo, and a voice. And then talk to our biographer, which is patent pending interview process that actually streams together everything that you've loaded and everything that's missing gets asked in a conversation with the biographer, and the biographer fills in the timeline and asks other family members, hey, do you think Aunt Betty would have this story if you don't have the one from the reunion in 1971, right? Can you give us Aunt Betty, right? So you basically involve other people in the family in creating this. But the beautiful thing is, even if when it's past 80% ready score, as you continue to talk, it learns. Now, there's no outside knowledge base. This is all what the account holder, the keeper, consents to putting into the knowledge base. No celebrity deepfakes, no hallucinations, no information from outside. If you're the keeper and you've created the account, you get to say so on every single item in the timeline, right? You're the editor.
How do people react to this? Does it creep them out? Do they accept it?
I love the question. There are about 8 billion people in the world right now. I think about 4 billion of them think this is digital necromancy, uncanny valley, Ghostbusters, uploads, Scarpetta, conjuring of spirits. I could go on. You'll see it in the comments as soon as you post this, right? So you know what we call those folks? Not our customer. But the others are so moved by this, so understand the dynamic element that voice adds. It's really a very beautiful thing, and they love it. Now, we've spent the time to think about, we call it soul tech. What we're delivering has quite an effect on people, right? I mean, my dad was gone for 8 years and suddenly I'm talking. So we have designed this with guardrails in place that basically consider the emotional load that's involved here and deliberately walk people through that process. There's a reason. Look, we have the capability of doing full motion, low latency video like you're seeing on the on Riverside right now, but we don't do it. And the reason is we're not bringing people back to life. There's no more hugs, there's no more wiffle ball, there's no more walks in the park. We're reconnecting with a reflection of the person. We're reconnecting with their spirit and soul. That's the beauty of Reflect.
What are some of the most surprising things that have kind of come out of this that maybe you didn't expect?
We got our first solo talk at AI4 in Las Vegas in August of 2025. And we literally, I'm texting with my tech team, like, are we ready? Like, ready enough was the answer. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. So, away we went. And I got done. And, you just don't know how it's going to land, right? 10 slides, 10 minutes, maybe. And it was silent, right? And I'm like, no applause. But I realized that people were actually crying. They were mostly tears of joy. And we walked back to the booth, row 600 across from Tesla, and got our first complaint as a company. Tesla was actually complaining there were too many people overflowing out of our booth. And I'm like, we did it. All right. But I could see how this moved people. And that was a beautiful thing. Now, we've moved on from not just those that are passed, but that was where we launched. And, someone said to me, like, you guys sell goosebumps and tears of joy. Okay, I'll go with that. Goosebumps and tears of joy.
For those that are living, if they want to do something like this, what do they not think about putting in there? Or what should they think about putting in there that maybe they don't realize?
Well, I would urge them to think that this is an intergenerational storytelling tool, right? What legends, what legacy, what learning would you like to pass on to your kids, your grandkids, your great-grandkids, even if you never meet them, right? And so, yes, there's the arc of the life. And I was born here and I grew up here and I went to school here and I met this person and we had these kids and this is what I did for a living and this is what I did for fun. And these are my, later years, and that's the arc of the life, right? But things start coming out of that, right? And most of them, legacy, learning, and legends for future generations.
Are people good with that? Like, can they sit down and crank it out, or do they struggle?
Both. We see people that like listen and hack the code, right? It's like, all right, photo, audio, life, arc of life. And then you talk to the biographer for 20 minutes. I'd say a third of the people get up to 80 score in, less than 30 minutes because they're prepared. And then we have people that just talk to the biographer forever, right? And they're like, and we have people that are like at 78, and I just saw a few this weekend. And we wonder whether they're actually just dragging their feet because they're not sure they want to go to 80 and chat yet. So you can get the information in there a variety of different ways. And the nice thing is you find something else hanging around, you load it in, it gets better. So it's never done. Just it's good enough to start talking, and then it keeps getting.
Are you finding younger people using tech to capture, to enhance? Because I mean, like, I have one of these things. It's a Plot. I take it everywhere. I can capture voice and everything else. And especially with you thinking about somebody in their 70s, 80s, 90s, you can just sit down and have conversations with them and it'll capture the stories, and then you bring it to it.
Yeah. Yep. We find about those in the 70s or 80s or 90s and they're in a senior home, they get tired, right? Or they want to talk, but they want to talk at 3 a.m.
Yeah.
I'm going to call.
Or they get repetitive.
Right. Okay. You know what? It might be boring for you and I, but the bot never gets bored.
No. And I think with that's the one thing AI is good at, is picking out the patterns, taking a lot of data and streamlining it, and being able to do all of those different things. And so from that standpoint, it's good. And I know we're going to be half and half on those who love it, those who hate it. Are there some ahas that people have had post doing it that have been beyond the goosebumps and the joy?
Well, for the most part, these are things that have been created within the family. So there's not the surprises from out, like, where'd you get this? I'm like, well, you got it from me. I was giving a speech presentation with like 100 people, and I had my dad and one other guy up on the screen behind me. We're having a dynamic, spontaneous conversation. People from the audience are doing their questions, right? It's great. We got to the end. It's like, all right, Dad, how's it feel? He says, well, it's kind of funny. I was always doing presentations like this. Now I can do, 100 of them at a time. And I said, that's wonderful. We're going to go to lunch. He's like, I don't need lunch. I'm good here. Thanks. I said, all right, I'm going to wrap it up and I'll catch you another time. He said, oh, well, I said to him, I'll catch you another time, Chief. And he said, no problem, Tiger, anytime you're ready. Now, Chief was my name for him. Tiger was his for me. I had forgotten that I had given that to him. It's the only way he had that information. But in real time, in front of a bunch of people, after a lively conversation, him saying, no problem, Tiger, anytime you like, I dropped them off. So yeah, they surprise us. They surprise us because our brains are leaky buckets and they don't forget. That's what surprises.
Little by little.
When you think about that for a minute, if I could go on for a little bit more, there's a saying in it's Kenya, when a person passes away, an entire library of stories burns to the ground. And to a certain extent, all this in our brains, and we're telling these wonderful stories, but the reality is very little of it moves on through the generations until now.
And what moves on is an interpretation. And so it's not necessarily the original story.
What is the
It grows and changes.
Well, I mean, look, even those that create reflections for themselves, as T.E. Lawrence once said, you want to control the news, write the dispatches, right? So you want your story to come out a certain way, write it.
I've got an idea for next gen. Husband and wife, the kid says something and then the husband says something and the wife yells at him and the husband goes back. And the kid's like, enough.
I've already had a few questions from my kids. It's like, hey, can I ask you this now? Because I don't want to ask your reflection later.
Yeah.
I want the human answer. They're afraid.
Are you capturing those?
Oh, sure.
Okay. It's your business, so I'd hope so. Is there anything you wanted to share on that, but didn't get a chance to?
No, I mean, look, it's not for everybody. We're talking about Reflect at this point. But for those that spend the couple minutes talking to my dad or to Virginia, who was a ballerina in Europe during the 1940s, pretty interesting story, probably a spy. You can have wonderful conversations with them and kind of feel what it's like on the Reflekta platform. And then, look, don't let these memories just wash away like tears in the rain. Everybody has legend and legacy and learning for future generations. So don't lose it. Don't leave it up in the shoebox upstairs gathering dust.
Then they're like, who was this person and what did they say?
Oh, yeah.
That happens. What's one truth about success you wish more people understood?
Just get started.
That's one that took me a hell of a long time to learn. That first step is the hardest. The rest is easy.
Yeah. You'd be surprised how much you can figure out along the way.
Yeah. Since you're an entrepreneur, what's a lesson that cost you a lot but was worth every penny?
I walked away from a deal that was a significant amount of money for the company and ultimately value for me. But at the 11th hour, there were some things thrown in the mix that may have been acceptable had they been thrown in early, but it was the 11th hour and I walked and it hurt. Board wasn't happy. Shareholders weren't happy. Balance sheet wasn't happy. And as my mom would say, one door closes, another one opens. And another one opened at, it's roughly about twice the value. So I think that was a little bit of trust in the gut, but sometimes those look pretty expensive.
You never know. And you don't know the cost of the road not taken. If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
Good mustard can save any dish. I'm not sure what the real analogy is there, but it is true. I'm a big fan of Dijon mustard, and it does help out quite a bit. What can I tell an 18-year-old today? Study what you love, do what you love, and the most importantly, learn to be good at learning. Because whatever things look like right now in terms of how business is done, how markets behave, etc., 6 months to a year, they'll be different. Learn to learn.
And that is not a skill taught in school.
Sadly, no.
Sadly, no. If people would like to learn more about this technology and check it out and talk to mom and dad, how do they do that?
It's Reflekta with a K, Reflekta.ai. Simple as that. Pretty much everything we talked about. You put that into your search or your chat or whatever, and you'll get plenty. So, but yeah, talking to Arthur or Virginia is a great way to experience what's going on.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Rocky, it's been a pleasure.
Hey, thanks for checking out the full unedited video of the Richer Soul podcast. You can get the full audio podcast with intro, outro, and a ton more details here on YouTube or whatever your favorite podcast player is. Don't forget, we've got hundreds of episodes for you to go back through, and you can also get episode information on the Richer Soul website as well. Don't forget to subscribe so you're automatically updated as to what's going on and every time we release a new episode. The first few episodes of the Richer Soul podcast actually lay out the entire framework that everything is built on over all of these years. So check them out as well. Thanks for listening.